Hype is one of the most powerful emotions, and that adrenaline that wells up in your spirit makes even the most Herculean challenges feel like a cakewalk. And so I hope that that intro fired you up and gave you some motivation to have a good day today. Drop me a like and a subscribe if you're ready to get started. I want to start by going over some recent PRs that I've hit. Now, full disclosure, I'm hyped up, but this ain't going to be a victory lap because I have some areas of opportunity, particularly with this set of ATG weighted dips with 4 plates. A couple of the pauses were a little jumpy, but I'm going to blame that on the handles slipping around in my hands. I just couldn't get a good grip. But I have some new dip handles that are knurled coming in the mail that'll hopefully be here in time for me to come back for blood for 5 or more reps. Behind the neck press has been a very exciting lift for me to do because honestly, full disclosure, I sucked at it at first. I was using 95 pounds, which is a quarter per side. But I hit a plate and a quarter per side for 7 reps, which is huge. Moving forward on my quest to get 2 plates behind the neck for at least 5 reps, the only change that I'm going to make is pausing at the bottom and then bringing the bar down to the traps, which I just incorporated this week, and it's been working fantastically. On my road to a 3-plate overhead press, I'm very happy to say that I hit 255 pounds after not sleeping the entire night beforehand, fixing some technical errors for the Berserk Method 2025. So I know that this cycle, I'm going to do even better. Last but not least, curls for the girls. I actually have curled 135 pounds a plate per side many times, but this is the smoothest that I've gotten this amount of reps. Again, even though that I've done up to 8 reps, this is the smoothest, easiest 7 that I've got, which was huge for me. Little icebreaker aside with the PRs and the hype intro, I want to talk a little bit about my personal upper body training, just to give you a little bit of framework to use in your training. Overall, I'm a big proponent of exercise synergy. In other words, everything in your program should build upon everything else. So I train shoulder presses, incline presses, decline presses, and flat presses pretty evenly because getting stronger at all of them is going to lead to better overall development for me. And then for the people that I coach as well, I've observed something similar. But it also eliminates weak points on each of those movement patterns as well. So if you don't have a shoulder press, you're going to have relatively weak shoulders, which can hurt horizontal pressing strength. And then similarly, if you're weak at dips, your triceps are going to be relatively behind the curve as well, and that'll have lasting effects on all of your other presses. The examples can go on, but ultimately, you don't want to be weak at any of these movement patterns. We started off this particular workout with some seated overhead press, which I love just because it aligns with the shoulders better and it suits me well. This is the earliest in my training cycle, so week 2, that I'm using 180 pounds, which 3-4 months ago was still pretty decently heavy for me. I'm going to key you fellas in at home about a little secret. When you crush your shoulders, it leaves your back blushing, wanting some attention. Right now, I'm favoring a lot of chest-supported rowing, particularly on my new Omni bar in this case, but 1, because it's surgical, the form is easy to repeat, and it aligns best with the back muscle's natural strength curve. If you're interested, check out this video that I made after this one for a deep dive on chest-supported rows. Strength-wise, a goal for me before the end of the year is to get the 3 plates per side on this bad boy for at least 5 reps on this sucker. The most that I've gotten thus far is 2 sloppy ones, so we got some work to do. We got to clean them up and then add 3 more. Sounds easy, right? All jokes aside, that's a good way to think about some of your short and medium-term goals. If you've already, say, hit 315 for 2 reps and your goal is to hit 5, just think about it like I'm already loading 315 on the bar. All I got to do is add 3 more reps, and I have a year to do that? Come on, man. Anyway, I did mention that I wanted to change the form on my behind the neck press a little bit, just use more range of motion and pause at the bottom. Not that I felt a plateau with the particular technique that I was using, but just because I would rather further separate this away from my regular seated overhead press in terms of load. And then obviously when I build this back up to the same numbers that I was at before, my shoulders are going to be a lot stronger for that. These felt really good. The only thing that I would want to change form-wise for myself is to just keep my arms more perpendicular. I think that's the mathematical term. More in line with my body. They're flaring back a little bit, which didn't feel bad, but I do know that's a deficit of flexibility on my part. So it's just something to work on. Like I said, it didn't feel bad though. Fellas, what do I always say? Every piece of proverbial chocolate needs its proverbial peanut butter, and every horizontal road therefore needs a vertical pull. And listen, I love weighted pull-ups, but here's the problem. I tweaked my lat a little bit, so I wasn't able to do them for a little while, but was feeling pretty good recently, so I tested out my strength by just doing a 1-arm chin-up. It felt a little shaky, but it was okay. Definitely don't imitate that for you fellas watching at home. Don't go from regression to, let me test this by doing a 1-arm chin-up. Anyway, This pressing workout gets finished up by just hitting up some arms. I really like doing my hammer curls, and then I will also do some triceps and one of my favorite shoulder isolations that I've ever done. Here I'm trying out a cue on these overhead extensions that I'm doing with my brand new Omni bar that I got from watching Jared Feather train with Jeff Nippert. And basically he let his arms point forward a little bit more as opposed to going purely vertical, which I kind of have to do anyway, just because the bar will otherwise bump into the bench. But it felt pretty good on the triceps, and overall I loved my control and my form on this set, and this was a good amount of weight for me. Little golden tidbit for the fellas at home: if you don't have access to an Omni bar or a Swiss bar, if you have one of those old school tricep bars with a neutral grip, do that, because the neutral grip is just going to naturally promote keeping your elbows in more, which is going to recruit your triceps a little bit better. Last but certainly not least on this session is a banger exercise that I got from good friend Sam. He wrote an overhead press program for me and threw these bad boys in. It is a chest supported Y raise, superset, or rather drop set it with a chest supported T raise. This crushes my rear and side delts. I felt like Final Form Frieza after I did this, dude. A lot of folks will have chest or sternum pain just because you're pressing into the bench with your chest. Use those chest muscles that you built up, kind of puff them up a little bit so there's cushioning you between your sternum, the bench, and then obviously the pecs, the buffer. Also brace your core a little bit, so you don't want to be totally relaxed on this thing. Bada bing, bada boom. That is my first training session of the week, focused on vertical pressing with some pulling and then some arms. My next upper body session is going to focus on some decline pressing along with some incline pressing, starting with my favorite exercise of all time, the ass to grass weighted dip. Here you see me doing 100 pounds for 14 paused reps, which I was very happy with. This is a plus 10 pounds over last training cycle on this week when I did 90 pounds paused for 14 reps. A big reason why I like to split my upper body pressing into as many separate and distinct training sessions as possible is because each of these to me are equal performance metrics, meaning I care about getting the best performance possible on each of these lifts equally. And if I was to say use a higher exercise selection on a singular workout, I've noticed that for me over the years, performance on that third, fourth lift is going to suffer tremendously. And the problem is that if you're trying to build your upper pecs, you're already fatigued by the time you're doing your incline press. You're never going to use the most weight that you could use to get the best results. So that's why I like splitting them up. And also, mentally, it's just easier to focus on 1-2 lifts per body part. For upper pecs in particular, I've done a lot of different exercises. One that I'm trying right now that I like, but I'm trying to figure it out still, is some low incline ring push-ups. I really like this just because rings allow you to get a squeeze at the top, which for me, if I'm able to squeeze into the muscle, I'm very easily able to determine what particular muscle is getting worked over another. So if I'm trying to work my upper pecs and I can feel my upper pecs squeezing hard as hell, I know that I'm working them pretty well. Last training cycle, I was doing some low incline dumbbell presses, which is basically the same movement pattern, just with external load. And I got up to 120s for, I believe, 10. Here I'm just recycling that PR set of curls that you already saw already. Just to talk a little bit about the curls, something that I like to keep in mind is just ensuring that I keep my wrist relatively neutral, or if it does deviate, I try not to let it go limp completely, just because for me, I feel like that throws off the center of gravity on the lift, which can make me miss reps. Another distinction that I just want to point out between my first shoulder pressing session and then this dip session, besides obviously that we're just training different primary pressing lifts and obviously some different pulls, is that I tend to use my heavier arm exercises on this dip day. That idea plays into a philosophy that I have, that we should also be pacing ourselves during our training week. So if you go heavy on something earlier in the week, there's no reason to go heavy on that again later in the week. So I like to just hedge it by saying, look, I'm going to do this here, and that here, just to ensure that I have even pacing throughout. It's just something to think about. Cool little tidbit for y'all for your chest supported rows or any rowing exercise. Something that I've been employing lately is just holding that squeeze at the top for a second. Typically, I wouldn't advise something like that, but if you either A, have trouble connecting with your back muscles, or B, you're like me, you're advanced and you just want to get a little bit more out of them, I do find that just trashes my upper back really bad. Something nice, so try that out. Last but certainly not least, I elected to do some pump work on some pec flies today. Now, hear me out. I don't think that that's the best thing to do if you want to grow muscle, just to get a pump. I'm more so doing it to prehab my pec tendons, essentially. Just drive some blood flow, help with recovery. I got that tidbit from John Meadows, rest in peace. But that's all she wrote for the dip session. Let's get freaking fired up for the last session. See you there, fellas. I hope you enjoyed that little end video hype boost. If you're still hanging out with me, do me a favor and like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's the first flat barbell pressing that I've done in a long time, albeit with a cambered bar. And I really liked my form on this. It felt really good. 275 for 5 ain't my best, but it certainly ain't my worst. And considering the technique that I used, I'm gonna say that I have equal performance while being neurally inefficient at this. So I'm throwing this in on a linear periodization cycle, which is a gigabrain way of saying I'm going to start light and then end heavy. Just did this today with a heavier set just to gauge where I'm at so that I could then plan out the rest of my training. As you can see, I'm hitting up some more chest supported rows, and you can also notice that I do similar exercises in similar slots on all 3 training sessions. I really add in that variety, 1 for novelty, 2 for fun, and then 3 to work the muscles a little bit different each time. Another thing I keep in mind on this last training session is overall, I try to look at it as a light day. Now, I'm not saying go easy, I'm just saying relative to an estimated 1 rep max, because you're never gonna do like a 1 rep max lateral raise or anything like that. Relative to the other 2 days, you're going in a higher rep range just because, you've already gone heavy, you've done a medium workout, now you're gonna go lighter and do more reps. I also like to think about finesse and rep quality, really that being the primary driver of progress on this last day. Not to say that I'm Jimmy Bookworm or anything like that, but for instance, I've done up to 275, like 2 plates and a quarter on Smith JM presses, using totally different technique. Here I elect to aim higher up towards my eyeballs as opposed to like my chin or collarbone. And overall, it leads to less load on the bar. But again, I'm putting a higher premium on the technique. So I'm trying to keep the elbows forward as much as possible. And I'm going really slow, trying to keep tension throughout the entire set, which paradoxically sometimes can lead to you doing less total reps when you're slowing things down that much. But ultimately, it's still a relatively low intensity, just because if I did a normal cadence, I probably could have did like 20 reps or something. Another thing that I kind of keep as like a free slot, so to speak, on this day is I keep my tricep work open for interpretation. Just on this last day, I've already had 2 structured days of tricep work. I really have been leaving this slot open to experiment with things that I enjoy or maybe I'm interested in. Last, but certainly not least, we have a beef cannon Bobby biceps blasting exercise. Really, this is just an accessory to my standing barbell curl. I like to do a seated curl where I let my arms drag behind my body, but it's not quite an incline curl because I don't let my torso sit back. I'm totally sitting straight up and down. Again, just like with the JM press, the focus is on form, finesse, rep quality, and not just tossing a bunch of reps on the board just to be able to say, hey, I did a bunch of reps. I'm really looking for movement quality here. In terms of overall volume, I am still keeping the bicep sets per week a little bit lower than the tricep sets per week, just because 1, I find that it can be tough for me particularly to recover from doing the same amount of volume as my triceps on top of all my pulling. It's not for most people, it's just for me in particular and how I'm customizing my program. And by the way, I don't usually train my abs with my upper body anymore. I usually do it with lower body, but I just felt like doing it today because I skipped it the last lower body workout. Don't tell anybody I told you that. It's between me and you. But I do really like this machine. Try it out. That's going to be all she wrote for today, fellas. Thank you for watching and hanging in there with me. If you want to support the channel, please check out my new Omni bar. We sold out the first couple batches pretty quick, so if you're interested, check the link in the description or in the pinned comment. It comes with a free complimentary program that is included with the purchase of the bar, and overall, it's a really cool product that you can do a whole lot with. We do bench press, rows, curls, triceps. You can use it as a cable attachment. It's extremely versatile, so again, I do recommend it. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.